Heyo, welcome to the Streamo, Supremo, Bebop, Skibbly.Femo. My throat hurts a little bit, and that's okay. Here's a poll on the next big thing I'm gonna stream. So if you wanna dictate what I do, someone is doing construction work outside my house. One of my neighbors. So if you hear one of my neighbors doing construction work outside of my house, you now know. And I mean, I can't, stop them. It's their house, legally. Anyways, this is what I like to refer to as Sprite Review, where I review a bunch of spruits. So I'm gonna get us just a little background music. There we go, just there, just for this is a Sonic Rush Adventures thing. So let me introduce you to Karnov and its haha funny wacky world. Karnov is a game for the arcades, but I couldn't get that working on the magical falcon that lives in my computer. So instead of that, we're gonna do the NES version. And I'm gonna try to do the enemies in order of their appearance. If I can't remember, then I'm just gonna go alphabetically on what I call the enemies. The problem is, Karnov for the NES likes to reuse sprites, and I will explain when we get to that, right? First up is our goddamn fucking people with their construction work. Okay, hopefully they'll stop. The first enemies in this game that you come across on the first level is what I like to refer to as I'm gonna get the Sonic Rush Adventure music back up. I'm sorry. There we go. Is what I like to call the Demon Jesters. These little bastards are the first enemy of the first level that you encounter in Karnov. They look like, well, floating jesters that are demons, and all they do is bum rush Karnov. Like I said, I don't really care for the design of this, but at least it's creative. This is a trend you'll see in Karnov, is that some of the enemies are really creative designs, and then some of them are just whatever, Karnov has what I like to refer to as a balance of wackety-schmackety-do bullshit and not so much wackety-schmackety-do bullshit. I don't really care for the colors. I don't like this toxic lime green that they have, but, NES color palette, what you gonna do about it? They kind of remind me of the viruses from Dr. Mario a lot. Like, just the way that they look, they remind me of the viruses of Dr. Mario. It just does not. These guys are just not the best. What's the next enemy? I can't remember. Okay, next up is the genies. The genies appear in multiple levels, and they come in two flavors: green and red genies. As you can see, they fly on some kind of fiery cloud, I believe. These guys just like to shoot fireballs at you, which is a theme in this game. I cannot tell you how many enemies either, one, like to bum rush you, or two, like to shoot fireballs at you, or three, do both at the same time because fuck you, buddy. And their design makes me think of, like, Piccolo from Dragon Ball. I don't know why, but I think of, like, a naked Piccolo from Dragon Ball when I see these fire genie bastards and their love of, shooting fireballs at you. The red ones take slightly more hits to kill, and that is a theme with the variants of this game, is that the variant versions seem to take more hits to kill. One moment. Okay. And I can't tell if these are, like, meant to be ears on the genie. Like, the ear bits are like antennas. Also, he's got either pecs or man boobs. I can't, I can't quite, decide whether or not those are pecs or man boobs on him. But, the genie is one of those, what kind of enemies? Yet again, either this game has whackity-schmackity-doo bullshit, or, just generic whatevers for enemies. Oh, goodness. Next up is what I like to call the Flying Banana Monster. He looks like a flying xenomorph banana, and he does show up in multiple levels, but he doesn't have any variants. He's one of those enemies that like to disappear, attempt to bum rush you, and if that fails, he might shoot a fire orb at you for God only knows what reason. He really does look like those banana monsters from TMNT. You know, those banana xenomorphs. I'm gonna get an example of that. Banana xenomorph. One moment, I want to show you an example of that. You know what I mean? When he looks like that thing from TMNT. Where is the thing that I need? Yeah, where is it? Oh, I can't do the Duke Nukem voice. It hurts too much right now. And oh boy, someone is doing construction work. Yeah. See? Look. He reminds me of these xenomorph-like monsters from TMNT, but with the, like, green banana wings. And yet again, he is what I like to call one of the whackity-schmackity-doo monsters of Karnov. Like, what possessed them to make a flying yellow xenomorph that this I don't. Karnov really doesn't have a thematic through line with any of its designs. Next up is the final monster pair from the first, well, no, the second, the penultimate, before we get to the boss. And then we get a monster that we get one more monster from level 1, and then level 1 is the one that introduces the most monsters to the Rogues Gallery. This is what I like to call the Rockmen. The Rockmen, well, they look like rock versions of Karnov, like some sort of evil force, evil wizard, brought forth into this universe some sort of rock golem version of Karnov. And what they like to do is, well, toss rocks at you, and in later levels they come in clay version or stone version, and then there's a completely different rock monster man that shows up in later levels. I don't know if that one is related to these other two rockmen, but I put them in there because I felt like it. I'm not sure if this rockman is related to these rockmen, but he also kind of the one that I think is related kind of also makes me think of like a tree monster of sorts. I'm getting like Tree Man monster vibes from this guy here. That's just my opinion, you know. I'm getting like he might be a fossilized tree monster instead of a rockman. But yet again, this game really doesn't have a thematic through line with its creature design. Yeah, sadly that seems to be a theme with the NES. Cosby, did you see the other monsters? I want to know if you just saw them before I move on to the next guy. And I'm sorry. Okay, then I will show you the other monsters from the beginning, and we'll get back to where we were. So here's the first monster of the game. This is what I like to call the Demon Jesters. They look like the viruses from Dr. Mario. And as I mentioned before, the monsters of this game in Karnov like to do one of three things. One, they either like to show up and bum rush you. Two, they like to shoot fireballs at you. Or three, they fire some kind of nonsense at you. They look like they're doing the XD emoji face. Kind of. I don't really care for the lime green coloring of these guys, but yeah. And I can't tell if those are like meant to be wings on the Demon Jesters. Yeah, and I can't tell if those are meant to be wings on these virus Demon Jesters or not. But these little bastards do show up in other levels. Yeah, I could see how it looks sort of like the Green Goblin. But those are like the first monsters you meet in this game. And they do show up later on in other levels. Next up are the Fire Genies. As I mentioned before, these guys come in, well, green and red versions. The red versions do appear in later levels. These are the guys who like to just shoot fireballs at you kind of enemies. They just fly in their cloud, shoot a random fireball at Karnov, and that's it. And with a lot of other enemies in this game, the variants that show up in later levels, the red ones, take more hits to kill. And yet again, it reminds me of Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z a little bit in his design. Especially the greenish yellow version. And this, I don't know if this is like a designed through line, but a lot of the monsters are either nonsense, what the fuck are they? Or just generic. And yet again, this game likes to reuse monster types, so sometimes, especially in the later levels, sometimes you get both monsters variant types, and they'll just show the fuck up for no good reason. Next up is what I like to refer to as the Flying Banana. it really does just look like a banana xenomorph, but he flies. I don't know what to say. This is one of those enemies that likes to disappear and reappear and then shoot some random whatever at Karnov. I don't know what it is exactly. All I know is it's some random whatever he shoots at you. Yes, it does remind me of that too. I mentioned this before. It really does remind me of that xenomorph from TMNT. I don't have much to say except for it looks like a flying banana xenomorph. These guys do show up in later levels, but there's no variant of them that I can think of. There's no what's the word I'm looking for? There's no color variation that I could find. Since I showed you the rock men, I will get to the final enemies introduced in the first stage. Then we'll move on to, well, to the other things. There it is. These are what I like to call the swordmen. These guys are in what I refer to as the generic category of enemies of Karnov. They're just Middle Eastern looking guys. From the way they look like they're dressed in like turbans or like, I don't know, some sort of turban and hat thingy combo. You know what I mean? They do show up at a later level. Yet again, Karnov for the NES likes to reuse its enemies. And these are of the category of bum-rushing Karnov. They just rush over to Karnov, slash with their sword. The use of black to obscure their face is kind of neat. Yeah, but they're just what I like to call the generic enemies. Now on to the first boss. Now, Karnov for the NES likes to, sadly reuse its bosses. That's a theme in Karnov, is that the bosses will either become regular enemies in later levels or get reused as bosses for another stage. This happens. That's just something that seems to happen in Karnov for the NES. So, the fish dude here is the first boss of the game, but later on, he shows up as just another enemy in a later stage. And he kind of makes me think of, like a merman or a gillman or a fishman monster, but for some reason he likes to reach into this, like, sack or vase or something and then shoot a green energy blob at you, which you can see him hitting Karnov with. I really don't know, but I'm getting a very, like, look at the expression on the fish dude, right? He looks very nonplussed about this. This is just a day job to this fish dude here. This is just another day, another dollar for the fish dude here. It's 11, yeah. Where's the second one? This is in the category of what the fuckery. I just call these heck if I knows. They're some kind of Olmec Greco-Roman statue that likes to disappear and shoot God only knows what at you at Karnov. They kind of make me think of, like, Babylonian or Olmec statues. But I don't know what the fuck this thing is exactly. See, is that a beard? Is that its jaw? Is that hair? Heck if I know. And these guys do show up in later stages, but I hate them. I hate them. Let's just say if it wasn't for Karnov's monster design and how wacky it can get sometimes, I wouldn't be playing Karnov. Yeah, I can see an eyebrows and a nose and eyes and maybe some lips. I can't tell if those are feet or just meant to be like a clothing, but fuck if I know. Next up are the Hawks. They come in two varieties, yet again, blueberry flavor and lemon lime flavor. The lemon lime flavor are, of course, a later stage variant. These guys like to, yet again, disappear, swoop down, and bum rush Karnov. As you can see in the, they're swooping down and bum rushing attack. They are part of the generic enemies category. They're just giant hawks for some reason. Would you like to know the story of Karnov for the NES, Cosby? Would you like to know the story of Karnov? Here's the plot of Karnov for the NES. Karnov is after the treasure of Babylon. He is after a treasure. Karnov is not meant to rescue a princess. Karnov is not here to save the world. Karnov wants a fucking treasure. And for some reason, all this wacky bullshit is stopping Karnov from getting the treasure of Babylon. Which we don't even see at the end, by the way. You don't even get to see the fucking treasure at the end of the game. It's just, it's maddening. I would at least like a scene with Karnov rubbing his fucking man-tits with gold or some shit, I'm sorry. Why do these birds, why do these anythings want to protect the treasure of Babylon from Karnov? Is beyond me. He is just Dead East's Wario, yeah. Next up is Goldman. He's a gold man with a gold plan upon the land to expand, being fucking made of gold. The gold men do show up in later levels, but there's no variance. He's one of those enemies that likes to do a what the fuck attack. What he likes to do is he'll become an orb and split up into multiple golden orbs that will spread shot and hit fucking Karnov, and I couldn't capture him doing his orb attack because it's bullshit. It's bullshit, to be frank with you. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's bullshit, to be frank with you. We have two more unique enemies that were introduced in this level. Next up is the Blue Knights. The Blue Knights are, well, they're floating armor. I really like the coloring of these guys. They have this nice, pleasing, like, blue color. And I like to imagine that these are just haunted armor of some sort. Like, possessed armor of ghosts or some shit. They do show up in later episodes. Episodes? Yes, Ted! Episodes! Episodes! Yes! Episodes! Episodes! Yes! But, they do show up in later levels, but there aren't any variants. Yet again, these are the enemies that like to bum rush you. Category. And finally, for our final level, for the end boss, it is a fucking shepherd with a green lion that likes to shoot fireballs at you. Yet again, this is part of the whackity schmackity do bullshit category of karnov. Why does this Middle Eastern nomad shepherd guy have a lion, a pet lion that can shoot fireballs is beyond me. This is not a final boss. This is the boss of level 2. He only ever shows up at the end of level 2. That's it. He doesn't get reused. He doesn't get anything. He just shows up at the end of level 2, and that's it. He doesn't get to appear ever again. The first enemy introduced in level 3 are what I like to call orbs. It's a floating orb that likes to, yet again, bum rush Karnov. And they remind me of those, you know those fuzzy felt worm toys? I'm getting a real fuzzy felt worm toy from that. You know exactly what I mean when I say fuzzy felt worm toy. If you don't, I'm gonna show you an example and you'll understand. Oh yeah, this is the lamest enemy, and it does show up in later stages, though. See, that's what I'm reminded of when I see these guys, is these fuzzy felt worm dudes. That's what I'm reminded of. Now, Stage 2 doesn't introduce... I mean, Stage 3 only introduces a few more enemies left. Sorry, I have to remember what order they were introduced in. Give me a second. Next up are the floating dragons. They appear in multiple levels and either green or red variants. The red variants are the earlier ones, and they are later stages. Yet again, I'm getting a real vibe from this guy. He looks like some kind of weird toy that you would buy from like a flea market or something. You know those snakes? You know those snakes from the dollar store? Those snakes that are like made of like multiple jointed plastics? You know what I'm talking about, Cosby? That is a feeling I get from this guy here. You know what I mean by that? That's the feeling I get from this this dude here. And yet again, he likes to bum rush Karnov. He likes to bum rush Karnov, and you know what the weirdest part about this fucking dragon is? You want to guess what the weirdest part of this dragon is? I want you to guess. I want you to try to guess, I'm sorry. It bounces on the level like a pinball. When it hits the ground, it will bounce in upwards in like a diagonal way. It acts like a pinball sometimes. The dragon will sometimes bounce around the stage like a pinball. And I don't understand why the dragon does this. Even in the water level of this game, it'll bounce around like a pinball. And here's the final enemy, besides the boss that was introduced in this level. I like to call these guys the Macho Men. The Macho Men are, well, they seem to be bearded, muscular men in Speedos who like to gang rush on Karnov, yet again. And they're just bearded, muscular men, and there's a lot of them. They usually show up in groups of just a fuck ton of Macho Men. The Macho Men are probably my least favorite enemy in this game, just because there's so goddamn many of them that they slow down the the NES, and they like to gang rush on good old Karnov here. Also, yet again, as you can notice, their attack, their gang rushing attack, is them thrusting at Karnov. And now for the boss of level 3, who shows up in multiple levels, multiple times, because yet again, this game likes to reuse bosses. It's Godzilla. It's just a red Tyrannosaurus Rex who shoots fireballs at Karnov. He's basically Godzilla. He's basically Godzilla. He's just Godzilla. And this begins a trend in Karnov, boss number 3, of where the boss's weak point is on its head. This begins a trend in Karnov where the boss just has a weak point on its noodle. Every other part of not Godzilla, of the red-flavored Godzilla, is only invincible, so you can only hit him on his head, which is not that fun. Yeah, I guess you could say he's more of Gorgosaurus. Next up is the water level of the game. And for the water level, they introduce a fish. This is one of those generic monster enemies. And yet again, he likes to bum rush Karnov. But he makes me think of like a piranha of sorts. He kind of looks like a piranha of sorts. Also, the way his eyes look, he looks a little like he's hyped up on something or another. Like, this fish is hyped up on something or another. He looks a little fucked up, is all I'm gonna say. His big fangs are funny. I guess so. Next up is the seaweed. That's right, seaweed comes at you in this game. Now, unlike in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the seaweed here is not electric. I want you to try to guess the seaweed's attack, Cosby. I'll give you a hint. It shoots fireballs at you! That's right, in the water level of this game, you have seaweed that somehow has evolved the ability to shoot fireballs at people while looking for a man who's looking for the treasure of Babylon. Next up are the, yeah, they really would make anything an enemy, I get what you're saying. Next up are the giant clams. The giant clams, yet again, disappear, and shoot whatever at Karnov. These guys don't show up at any other level, by the way. These all are exclusive to the water level. There was an animation of them closing and opening up their mouth, but I couldn't quite get it when I was playing the game, because at this point of the game, it begins to become incredibly bullshit. It becomes incredibly bullshit. And for the second to final enemy that's introduced in the water level are mermen. These mermen really remind me of, like, the sea monkeys, you know? You know what I'm talking about? Like the advertisements for sea monkeys on the comic book pages. You know what I mean. They give me a sea monkeys vibe. And what they like to do is, well, throw spears at you. They like to throw spears at you, and yet again, they are exclusive to this level. I really like the purple coloring of these guys. It really makes them feel like they're not, like, natural in a way. That's just of my opinion, you know what I mean? So, what do you think the boss of a water level would be, Cosby? I want you to think. I want you to think, what would the boss of a water level be? Maybe some kind of giant fish. Maybe an octopus. No. It's a fucking centipede woman. It's a fucking centipede woman. She likes to stand up and shoot a fireball at you, yet again. And yet again, the centipede woman's head is her only weak spot. And yet again, she gets reused in later levels as a boss. That's her in a later level as a boss getting reused, because this game likes to reuse bosses. She gives me a real Medusa, like a Medusa or a Gorgon vibe. Especially, like, her head gives me a, like a head full of snakes, you know what I mean? Yes, it is weird that it's an exclusively land animal, but this game doesn't really have a thematic throw-through. I think the people at Data East thought, Centipede Woman! And then they just put her in that level. Now, level 5 doesn't really introduce many new monsters. It only introduces 2 new monsters and a boss. Yes, it really does feel like they're throwing random bullshit together. Here are the enemies that are introduced into level 5. Level 5 has a lot of reused enemies. So this is the unique enemy type for that level. It's a geyser. It's a geyser that pops up from the ground and shoots Karnov with fireballs. They're just geysers. I don't care for them. Design-wise, it's just... Why would your ice level of your video game... Why would your ice level of your video game have geysers coming up from the ground shooting fire? I don't understand this. Here's what I like to refer to as the owl bats. In the first stage of the first time they appear in stage the ice level, they just stand there. They do look like weird Muppets a little bit, yeah. And they don't do anything besides shoot fireballs at Karnov, because of course. But in later stages, the owl bats will kind of swoop down and they'll gain this, like, weird smiley form and they'll disappear and, of course, bum rush Karnov. The later the game goes on, the more of the enemies just bum rush Karnov. And it gets bullshit towards the end. Karnov gets unfun real fast, is what I'm saying. Karnov gets unfun real fast. And now that we have Godzilla in this game, we have fucking King Ghidorah. We have a two-headed dragon as the boss for the ice stage. He does show up in later levels, yet again. He shows up in a later stage as the boss of that later stage, as you can clearly see. I really like the big bulgy eyeballs and the goofiness of this guy. He really does make me think of something out of a Toho movie or some sort of just weird kaiju that would show up in some weird kaiju movie. Yet again, his heads are his only weak spot, though. So when he jumps up and flies, he kind of becomes invincible for a few seconds. And yet again, he likes to shoot fireballs at Karnov. In a later stage, which I will get to very soon, oh boy, that stage is fucking bullshit, I will explain. He doesn't do his flying bullshit anymore. And I like his yellowish purple design. I like that coloring, of him. I really do like his coloring. He might be my favorite overall design of this game. It's kind of a shame that he shows up as a boss of multiple different stages. But I can see why they chose him to be a boss of multiple different stages. So, in this next stage, you want to know the bullshit about this next stage? I'm going to explain it to you. I'm sorry. I apologize greatly on behalf of myself. I really do. I'm sorry. You get an item that allows Karnov to fly, but in order to do that, you have to do a leap of fucking faith. And then press select so that Karnov can grow wings and fly in this stage. And then you fight whatever the fuck this statue is. I have no idea what to describe this thing. It's some kind of griffin statue, and it only shows up in this stage. And that's it. And I hate it. I hate this thing. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's some kind of weird griffin thingy. Fuck if I know what you want to call this thing. Do I mention that your wings are on a timer? That you have limited flight and you have to get more wings in order to keep flying in this stage? Ugh, God, the game gets bullshit real fast. I'm not gonna lie. And here's the next, just like birds in real life. And continuing the bullshit parade of this, game, I didn't get this enemy the first time around, so that's kind of why the, image quality is crusty of this enemy. I had to go to YouTube and get a playthrough of this enemy, because it only shows up once, in one specific fucking spot of one specific fucking stage of the game. And it, yet again, disappears and bum rushes Karnov. This is the chameleon enemy. It likes to disguise itself as a beautiful woman. See? And then it becomes a fucking chameleon. And then bum rushes you. God, I hate this enemy. It only shows up once. This thing is the worst. I hate it. Did I mention that you're on a limited timer and you're flying in this stage? I hate this chameleon. Moving on to the last stage of the game. The last stage of the game is a terrible, awful ladder maze. It is an awful maze of ladders and leaps of faith and enemies that like to bum rush you. At this point of the game, it's awful. It goes from, this is fun, to bullshit real quick in Karnov. At this point, I was cheating because I just did not want to deal with Karnov's brand of bullshit. This is a mummy. When you shoot the mummies, they become tombstones because, the heck if I know. They only show up in the last two stages of the game. Which are both terrible, awful ladder mazes full of bullshit enemies. Oh, God, I hate the last two stages of this game. I cannot describe to you how bullshit they get, I'm sorry. So just imagine all the enemies from before, all the bum rushing kind of enemies at you, bum rushing you. And it's just... And now for the game's final boss. What do you think would guard the treasure of Babylon? What do you think would guard the treasure of Babylon? The thing that you've been after this entire game. That Karnov wants for some reason. I'll give you a hint, Cosby. It's bigger than a fucking battleship. One moment. God, this image is giant. Why did I make it so big? It's the giant fucking claw from the movie, The Giant Fucking Claw. This guy likes to pop out of the windows, and yet again, you've got to shoot the giant claw in his noodle. It's some kind of worm dragon giant claw monster. And he likes to pop out of the windows, hit Karnov and bum rush him yet again. And I don't know how else to describe him as the giant claw. He's the giant claw. Now, why is the giant claw guarding the treasure of Babylon? What's with that giant insect monster statue? The game offers no answers whatsoever to these questions. I'm sorry. I apologize greatly. I really do. I'm sorry. I really do like the coloring because it makes me think it's like made out of like this weird pulsating flesh. Like this thing is like made out of weird meat or something. Like rock or meat or just something. Also, I get the feeling this thing has like weird eyeballs on it. See what I mean? Like these eyes right there. On its like meat rock body. And yet again, you don't get to see the treasure of Babylon at the end of the game. You don't. But in the arcade version, you do get to see it. So I'm going to show you the arcade version's ending. The NES doesn't get to show you anything. It just says, the end, congratulations, that's it. But at the end of the arcade version, you get to see Karnov with the treasure of Babylon. And I kind of wish this was just in the NES version. This picture right here would have made it worthwhile, in my humblest of onions. Just this image right here of Karnov enjoying his treasure that he fought so hard for. That's it. That's the ending. Karnov goes, treasure! And that's it. I'm sorry. But that does not show up. That does not show up in the end of the NES version, sadly. Sadly, I'm sorry. We don't get to see Karnov and his treasure. I'm sorry. And that is Karnov, a game about a man going on a quest to get the treasure of Babylon for reasons. Overall, the designs of these monsters don't make sense, and the game is not fun to play. I cannot stress to you how unfun this game is to play. Especially towards the end of it. Before I go, I'm sorry. I apologize greatly. One moment, please, and thank you. I have a poll on what my next big stream thingy will be. If you want to vote on it, you can. Go nuts, go butts, go coconuts, or not. I'm sorry if I come off as a douche, as an asshole. I'm sorry. So the next Sprite review, I'm gonna be honest with you. Okay, I'm gonna give you a choice on what you would like to see it. The next Sprite review would be. Would you like me to review Joe and Mac for the NES? I mean, for the SNES, for the Super Nintendo, or Castlevania for the NES, or Diablo 2 for the PC. What would you like to see as me doing a Sprite review of? It's up to you. You get to decide. You don't have to tell me now, but whenever you feel like it. That's cool. I'm sorry. Like I said, you can decide whenever you feel like on Discord. Now, for the signing us off, I feel like we need something, a palate cleanser from Karnov's funny Babylon Treasure Adventure, the New Zealand national anthem. I'd like to thank you all for coming. It means a lot to me that you come. It really does. It really means a lot to me that people come to these streams. Thank you so much yet again. That's it. Goodbye for now. Goodbye, JoJo's.